alien girl must get clapped, or she'd die like the others who stayed inactive. Asterisk. The reflection in the mirror betrayed nothing of the storm inside her. Kara Vex stood rigid, shoulders squared, jaw clenched. The cool light of the Orions. Fury's officers' quarters cast her angular Zethan features in sterile blue, but even that couldn't disguise the faint tremble in her fingers or the subtle flush of fever blooming beneath her emerald skin. Her eyes, normally hard as carved crystal, looked dimmer, and for the first time in years, something close to fear shimmered in them. She took a breath, shallow and tight. Her heart thudded behind her sternum, irregular, panicked. 6 days. That was all she had left. Zethan biology was merciless. A female who failed to conceive before 30 didn't just become obsolete. Her body shut down. A rapid system-wide failure of organs and cellular cohesion, designed by evolution or cruelty to clear the genetic field. They called it the silence. One moment you were whole. The next, your cells betrayed you, unraveling with frightening precision. She'd seen it happen to others, friends, cadets, commanders who gave too much of themselves to duty and too little to the imperative. They died with medals on their chests and horror in their eyes. Kara had sworn it wouldn't be her. She pulled her uniform jacket tighter, even though sweat clung to her spine. The ache in her womb was growing sharper, a low serrated pain that pulsed like a warning siren. Her vision shimmered for a second, edges of the room blurring. She braced herself against the sink until the distortion passed. "No," she whispered. "Not yet?" A beep echoed from the wall panel. The ship's eye had summoned her 10 minutes ago. She was late. That alone said everything. Kara Vex, late to duty? The breakdown was already creeping in. She forced herself upright and strode from the room, each step deliberate, mechanical, defiant. The corridors of Orion's Fury were as sterile and unforgiving as the uniform code she had lived by. The few crew she passed saluted, and she returned each one with precision, hiding the slight tremor in her fingertips. The bridge doors slid open with a hiss. Commander Jax Ironheart stood over the main console, hands clasped behind his back, his silhouette stiff against the glowing star map of the outer rim. Broad-shouldered, unshakable, a soldier's soldier. "Lieutenant," he greeted without turning. "You're overdue." "I need a word, Commander. Private." Something in her voice made him glance back. He studied her, reading past the surface. She wasn't here to report. She was here to ask, and that alone was alarming. He nodded once. "My ready room, now." The door hissed shut behind them. Kara remained standing while Jax took his seat, frowning at her. "What is this about?" "My condition," she said, her voice a blade dulled by exhaustion. "You know what I am, what I'm facing." Silence fell, thick and leaden. "Zethan?" Jax muttered. "I'd hoped you had more time." "I don't. 6 days." She swallowed hard. "I need clearance for personal leave. Immediate departure." "Leave?" he repeated. In the middle of a patrol rotation, Kara's jaw flexed. "If I don't find a mate, Jax, I die. That's not drama. It's science. My cells are already degrading." Jax exhaled sharply and leaned back in his chair. "You're asking?" "For permission to abandon your post for reproduction." "I'm asking for a chance to survive." He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched too long. Then, finally, "There's no one on board who fits the genetic compatibility." "Parameters." "You know that. I've run the scans," she said bitterly. "I know." Jax rubbed his jaw, the stubble rasping beneath his palm. "There's someone off-grid, not official channels, but he owes me." Kara's brow twitched. "Who?" "Reich Torin. Human. Mercenary. Bit of a bastard, but reliable when it counts." "A merc?" The word tasted like rust. "I'm supposed to entrust my gene cycle to some off-world criminal?" You want survival, Jock said flatly. This is your only shot. She turned, pacing, fists clenched. The heat in her chest surged again, an inner sun burning her from the inside out. Her skin itched like something wanted out. How do I find him? She asked finally. Furia Prime, Dock 17, Black Nebula District. He'll be there. Kara looked back at her commander. Thank you. He gave her a long, unreadable look. Be careful, Vex. You're not in uniform out there. No, she murmured, already halfway to the door. Out there, I'm prey. She didn't wait for his reply. She strode straight to the hangar, her breath ragged, her vision sharp with new resolve. Pride had to die before she did. The countdown had started. And if she wanted to live, she'd have to beg, bargain, or bleed for it. Kara Vex would not go silent. Not without a fight. The descent into Furia Prime was rough, both outside the ship and within Kara Vex's body. Her small interceptor shuddered as it pushed through the upper atmosphere, turbulence rattling through the hull. But she barely felt it. A deeper storm was breaking under her skin. Her limbs ached like broken metal, and behind her eyes pulsed a low-frequency hum that made her teeth hurt. Her body systems were unraveling by the hour. She touched a finger to her temple, activating the embedded HUD interface. A thin line of medical vitals pulsed red across her vision. Cell integrity, 62%. Neural cohesion, destabilizing. Fertility. Window, 4.3 days. Shit, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Cutting it too close. Furia Prime sprawled below in a tangle of neon-lit spires, rusted metal alleys, and sky traffic choked with rust bucket freighters and chrome luxury skiffs. A trader's world, lawless and loud. A perfect place to hide or disappear. Kara docked. Her ship on a rented pad at the edge of the Black Nebula District. As she stepped out into the night, the heat slapped her like an open hand. Alien spices, engine grease, and something distinctly chemical filled the air. Lights blinked and flashed in sickly blues and greens, advertising everything from cybernetic upgrades to exotic companionship. It was a pit, and she needed a man who lived in it. Her uniform jacket was gone, traded for civilian clothes type. Dark, functional. Her blaster sat snug against her hip beneath a long coat. She moved like a predator, though inside she felt like prey. The bar wasn't hard to find. The Black Nebula loomed like a tumor in the middle of the district, its walls stained with smoke and bad history. The sound inside was a mixture of thudding bass, laughter too loud to be real, and languages she didn't recognize. She stepped through the haze and into the chaos, eyes turned toward her. Male, female, and otherwise. Zethan women were rare this. Far out, one look at her skin, her posture, her scent, and they knew she wasn't from around here. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just scanned the room. Then she saw him. Back table, one boot kicked up. Half-empty glass of amber liquid in one hand. Hair silver and messy, face lean and scarred. Eyes too clear for a drunk. He was alone. But the way the tables around him were empty said everything. Reich, Torren. Kara walked up without hesitation. You, Reich? He didn't look up. Who's asking? Lieutenant Kara Vex, Galactic Patrol. Jox Ironheart sent me. That got his attention. He looked up slow, appraising. His eyes were pale blue, almost silver, and sharp enough to make her feel skinned. Jox, he muttered. Now there's a name I haven't heard in years. He said you owe him a favor. Reich leaned back, amusement tugging at the edge of his mouth. He's cashing it in now, huh? Must be serious. It is. She sat down without waiting for an invitation. Her legs were trembling under the table, but her voice was steel. I'm dying. That made him blink. You don't look like it. I'm Zethan. You know what that means. His brow furrowed. Something about a biological deadline? If I don't conceive in the next 4 days, my body shuts down. Permanently. The words hung in the air, bizarre and brutal. Set his glass down. And you came here to what? Recruit a mercenary for genetic charity? I came here because Jock said you could be trusted. I'm not asking for love. Just your seed. Then you walk. Reich stared at her a long time. Expression. Unreadable. Then he chuckled a short, dry sound. You've got brass. I'll give you that. You always this blunt with your dates? I'm not looking for a date. I'm looking to live. His smile faded. He glanced away for a beat, chewing on the thought. I'm not the raise a family type, he muttered. I don't need a family. I need a chance. He leaned forward. And what happens to me if I say yes? Some Zethan bonding mark? Do I wake up glowing next to you for the rest of my life? Kara met his gaze without flinching. There's no link unless we want it. It's just biology. Reich exhaled, slow and deliberate. Then he tapped the table with one finger. I've got a job to finish first. A heist, big target, high risk. If you help me pull it off, I'll give you what you need. Kara blinked. You want me to run a job with you in exchange for my life? I want to see what kind of woman I'm signing up for. Even if it's just once. She hesitated, then nodded. Deal. Reich smiled. Not wide, not kind. But something alive sparked in his eyes. Good. We leave tonight. He tossed back the last of his drink and stood. She followed. Outside, the streets of Furia Prime burned with light and shadow. And somewhere beyond them, the clock kept ticking. 4 days left. Asterisk. The shadow hawk lifted off like a predator shaking off dust, slicing through the layered haze of Furia Prime's polluted sky with a silent roar. Kara sat in the co-pilot's seat, eyes locked on the flickering map that hovered between them. Her hands were steady now, but only because she'd finally stopped trying to feel. Numbness was easier than panic. 4 days. No 3.5, if her math was right. The degradation would soon accelerate. Zethan biology didn't allow for sentiment or second chances. She glanced at Reich, watching him pilot the ship with quiet, focused precision. He hadn't said much since they left the bar. Just keyed in coordinates, muttered something about encrypted vault routes, and let the engines purr to life. His face was hard to read in the glow of the controls lean, weathered, the kind of face that had seen too much and decided not to care anymore. But there was something behind his eyes. Calculation? Concern? She couldn't tell. So, she said, breaking the silence. This high-stakes heist I just signed up for. What exactly are we hitting? Wright didn't look over. Kex organ. Outpost. Deep space cargo vault on a drifting fortress. They stockpile advanced bioweapon prototypes. We want one specific container. Small. Heavy security. Let me guess, Kara muttered. The container isn't labeled. He gave a dry laugh. You catch on quick. She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. You do realize the Kex organs are genocidal war beetles with claws that can slice through steel, right? Yep. And they digest their enemies alive. They've tried it with me, he said, casually flicking a switch. Didn't stick. Kara shook her head. You're insane. Probably, Reich agreed. But that's what gets jobs like this done. The ship slipped into warp, the stars stretching into luminous threads around them. In the silence that followed, Kara felt the first true stab of pain, deep, sharp, radiating from her lower abdomen up through her ribs. She sucked in a breath, clenching her jaw. Reich noticed. You good? No. He paused, and for the first time, his voice softened. Want to sit this out? I can still drop you at a med station on Holler 3. Might be someone there who's willing. Wouldn't matter. I'm already destabilizing. And I don't trust anyone else. He glanced at her again, longer this time. Why not? She hesitated. The words came slower now. Because I'm not just asking for sex. I'm trusting someone with the last of me. If I misjudge that, it'll be the last mistake I make. Reich didn't respond, but he nodded once. Thoughtful dot, it landed on a shattered asteroid orbiting a decaying moon. The Kex Organ stronghold was embedded in the rock itself, like a hive fused with a military base, glowing sickly green from the inside. The Shadow Hawk's cloaking held. As they settled behind a ridge, Reich stood, checking his gear. Pulse rifle, EMP darts, neural disruptor. We go in quiet. Get to the central vault. In and out. No firefights unless necessary. Kara pulled on her tactical vest, the motion stiff with pain. And if it's necessary? He grinned. Then we shoot fast and pray faster. They moved. Through the vents first tight, hot tunnels reeking of metal and insect musk. Kara led the way, her soldier's instincts sharpening with each step. The pain was a constant companion now, but she forced it down. There was too much at stake. They reached the central corridor. 2 Kex Organ guards blocked the vault access, towering insectoids with twitching antennae and razor limbs. Kara signaled with 2 fingers, then slipped a small capsule from her belt. What's that? Reich whispered. Sonic disruptor. Zethan military issue. Their exoskeletons resonate at high frequency. Watch. She rolled the capsule down the corridor. It beeped once, then emitted a sharp whine, like glass shattering in slow motion. The Kex organs spasmed, their carapaces splitting in thin lines of glowing green dot. They dropped. Reich blinked. Remind me never to piss you off. They entered the vault. Cold, metallic. Dozens of containers glowed under stasis fields. Reich moved like he belonged there, scanning serial codes, muttering under his breath. Kara leaned against a wall, breathing hard. Her vision blurred. Here, he finally said, lifting a narrow black case. They turned to leave, and the alarm screamed. To life. Shit, Reich growled. Fallback plan? I am the fallback plan, Kara said through clenched teeth. Go. I'll cover. Reich hesitated. Just a second. But then he bolted. She followed, blasting down the corridor, every movement a war against her body. Back. Aboard the Shadow Hawk, breathless and bleeding, Kara collapsed into the co-pilot's seat. The case was secured. The warp drive spun up. Reich glanced over at her. You're insane too, you know. Probably, she gasped, then quieter. But I'm still alive. He looked at her for a long time. Something in him shifted. The rogue, the merc, the mask it cracked. Let's make sure you stay that way, he said, and the stars opened up before them. Asterisk, the Shadow Hawk emerged from hyperspace, like a breath finally exhaled. The static charge of warp clung to the hull as the stars returned to still points around them, revealing a quiet pocket of space unclaimed by trade routes or conflict. Kara blinked hard against the dim light, her hand pressed flat to her lower abdomen. Every part of her felt brittle. Her bones ached. Her skin had gone from emerald to something closer to ash. Inside, she could feel her organs slowing down like a dying engine, flickering between function and collapse. She didn't need the HUD to confirm what she already knew her. Time had narrowed to hours. Where are we? She asked, her voice little more than a rasp. Menhira, Reich said from the pilot's seat, eyes forward. My old hideout. No patrols, no scanners. Just air, water, and nothing trying to kill you. The planet rolled into view ahead, a jewel of green and blue, ringed by soft cloud bands. It looked like something out of an old fairy tale. Gentle, peaceful, Impossible. Kara stared at it. You live here? I did. After everything went sideways with the Crimson Directive. Stayed for 3 years before the war called me back. His jaw flexed. Haven't brought anyone here since. She closed her eyes, her chest rising and falling in short, shallow waves. The warmth of the ship was starting to feel cold against her skin. Why now? Reich didn't answer for a moment. Then, softer than she'd ever heard him speak, he said, Because I don't want you to die in a metal box. The Shadowhawk descended through Menhira's atmosphere, gliding over sweeping pine forests, rivers that shimmered like mercury, and distant snowy peaks. It felt wrong. To be dying in a place so alive. They landed in a clearing where vines had already begun creeping up the rusted landing pad. Beyond that, nestled in the trees, sat a modest cottage-weathered wood, a stone chimney, and a quietness that hummed with memory. Reich helped her down the ramp. She hated needing it. Hated how light her limbs felt, how her knees buckled as they touched the ground. But when his arm went around her, steady and warm, she didn't pull away. Inside the cabin, it smelled like cedar and fire ash. A hearth still held half-burned logs. Reich lit it in silence, the flames casting long shadows across the floor. He didn't speak as he carried her to the bed and laid her down gently, like setting down something sacred. Kara stared at the ceiling. This is it, isn't it? She whispered. The end. Reich crouched beside her, his fingers brushing a sweat-damp strand of hair from her brow. Not if I have a say. I've already bonded once, she murmured. And it didn't. Hold. I thought the act was enough. I thought. Surviving was a transaction, biology, a switch. He took her hand. What if it's not? She blinked. Then what is it? Reich's voice trembled, just a little. Maybe you have to want more than to live. Maybe you have to choose to live. With someone. Kara tried to laugh, but it came out a broken exhale. I don't even know what that means. You don't have to. He kissed her hand just once. Just don't go quiet. For a long moment, they stayed like that, two people holding on to something unspoken. Then Reich stood. I need to show you something. He returned with a small carved box. Inside it, a necklace. Thin silver threads wound around a dark crystal. My wife's, he said. She died on Haller Station. I couldn't stop it. I didn't even try. I was too angry, too numb. His eyes met hers. I don't want to watch someone else I care about disappear while I sit on my hands. You care about me? Kara asked softly. Yeah, he said. More than I should. Her fingers found his, weak, cold. Then don't leave. He lay beside her on the bed, holding her close, her head resting against his chest. I won't. In the silence, Kara listened. To the fire. To the wind in the trees beyond the walls. And to his heartbeat, a steady rhythm, stubborn and grounding. Then something shifted. A pulse. Not from Reich. From within. Her breath caught. Her hand moved to her belly. The heat was returning. Not the fevered, spiraling heat of cellular collapse, but something gentler, stronger, like a light flaring to life in a cavern. Reich, she whispered. I think it worked. He sat up. What? I feel it. Her voice cracked. It's small, so small. But I think I'm pregnant. Relief, shock, a laugh she hadn't expected burst from her lips. Reich let out a ragged breath and pulled her into him, arms shaking around her. They stayed that way. For a long time, warrior and mercenary, broken and reborn, wrapped in silence, but no longer facing extinction. Not alone. And not today. Asterisk. The fire had died down to embers, casting soft orange light across the wooden beams of the cottage ceiling. Outside, dawn crept through the pine forest of Menhira, brushing the treetops with silver and gold. Birds sang. The planet stirred. Kara. Vex was alive. More importantly, she was still healing. She lay awake, curled beneath the thick blanket, eyes open and distant. Her body no longer felt like it was turning against her. The cellular decay had halted sometime in the night. The internal systems that had been flashing fatal alarms were now stabilizing, reorganizing. Her skin had returned to its vibrant emerald hue, and the pounding ache in her abdomen had softened to something else. Something blooming. Her hand hovered over her belly. There was something there. Not just a pregnancy, not just a zygote ticking. A box in her DNA. Hope. A knock on the doorframe broke her thoughts. Reich stood there, a steaming mug in each hand. Shirtless, his silver hair still tousled from sleep, he looked like someone who belonged to this world. Earthbound, steady, a far cry from the scoundrel she met in the neon stench of Furia Prime. "You look better," he said, voice warm. "I feel better," she admitted, accepting the mug. "Vitals?" "Normalizing." She looked up at him. "I should be dead." "But you're not." "No," she whispered, staring into the tea. "I'm not." Reich sat beside her on the edge of the bed. He didn't push, didn't prod. Just waited, calm and patient. Kara turned to him. "Finally, I was wrong. About everything. I thought survival was just ticking a box. Mate the genetic match, get through the window. But I think there's more, something deeper in the bond. I felt it last night when I let myself care. You were never meant to do this alone," he said softly. She nodded. "Maybe that's what the bonding truly is. Not just biology. Intention." Silence stretched between them like a held breath. Rake broke it. "There's something I should tell you." Kara raised an eyebrow. "That's usually my line. I didn't just help you because Jax asked me to." His eyes darkened. "Years ago, I worked a contract on Zeth Prime. Recon. Didn't know the mission involved testing. Didn't know we were running forced sterilizations under the guise of medical aid." Kara froze. "I didn't find out until afterward," he continued, voice tight with guilt. "But I didn't do anything. I looked the other way. Took the credits, got drunk for a month and tried to forget." She stared at him, her jaw tight. Her instinct screamed walk away, but she didn't. "Why tell me now?" "Because I don't want us to be built on a lie." He looked at her with something raw in his expression. "You deserve better." Kara exhaled. It came out shaky. "I don't forgive what you did, but I know what it's like to carry the weight of orders you didn't question." A long pause. "I'm still here," she said. Reich's shoulders dropped. Not in defeat, in relief. They sat in silence, letting the past settle between them, letting the present wrap around it like vines reclaiming a battlefield. Then the comms panel on the wall buzzed, interrupting the quiet. Reich rose, flicking it on. A grainy voice came through, panicked and sharp. "This is Resistance Node 9. We're requesting evac. The Kek's organs are retaliating. They've deployed a scorched earth drone fleet. Civilian colonies are burning. Repeat, civilian colonies are under fire." Kara shot up in bed, her heart hammering. They traced the heist. Reich stared at the readout, jaw clenched. "They're hitting back hard." He turned to her. "We could stay out of it." "We could," she said, standing. "Or we could end it." She placed a hand on her stomach. "Our child." She thought and looked him in the eye. "I want to bring this child into a galaxy that isn't dying by fire." Reich smiled then. A slow, crooked smile that somehow held both war and peace. "Then," he said, grabbing his rifle from the wall, "let's raise a little hell." They moved quickly. Kara suited up in her tactical gear, double-checking straps and plating, while Reich prepped the Shadowhawk for launch. They worked like two halves of the same machine fluid, efficient, wordless. But as they boarded the ship, Reich paused at the threshold. One more thing. He turned to her, his voice low and unwavering. If we don't make it out, I want you to know I never thought I'd find something real again. And now I have this. Kara reached out, pulling him into a kiss fierce and fast, full of everything left unsaid. Then let's make it out, she said against his lips. Engines roared to life, kicking up dust and leaves as the ship surged skyward. The forest fell away behind them, and ahead war. But this time, Kara Vex wasn't running from death, She was racing toward a future worth saving. Asterisk. The stars above Menhira shimmered with the cold light of distant fire. Kara Vex watched them blur. Through the forward viewport of the Shadowhawk, as the ship surged toward orbit, her body coiled with purpose, her hand resting lightly on her stomach. This time she wasn't flying to survive. She was flying to protect. Reich stood beside her at the controls, silent, eyes fixed on the coordinates streaming across the nav screen. The Kex organs weren't just retaliating, they were eradicating. One by one, outlying colonies had gone dark. Civilians, children, entire ecosystems burned under the black wing of the insectoid. Warlords, and it was their fault, no. It was their opportunity, because Reich hadn't just stolen a container during that heist, he'd stolen a weapon. A stasis-sealed prototype from the Kex organ's own genetic engineering program. Something old, something horrifying, something that shouldn't have existed. No, they had a chance to turn it against them, as the Shadowhawk sliced through. Deep space, Reich tapped the nav screen. We're rendezvousing with Resistance Node 9 in 2 hours. They've consolidated survivors from 3 colonies. If we're going to use this prototype, we'll need their scientists to decode it. Kara nodded, and the fleet scattered. Patrol's been slow to respond. Too much red tape. Then we skipped the tape. She turned, moving to the weapons locker, suiting up. Not her old Galactic patrol gear. This was leaner, stripped of insignia, painted in charcoal and matte green. A warrior reborn. Reich watched her in silence. She still moved like a soldier, but there was something new in her eyes. Not fear, not desperation, conviction. I thought you were done fighting, he said softly. I thought I was done dying, she replied, slamming the locker. Shut. Turns out I'm not done with either. When they dropped out of warp, Resistance Node 9 was barely holding together. The station's outer hull was scorched black, its comm relays cracked like broken teeth. Docking clearance was granted in a clipped, static-choked voice. Kara stepped onto the platform first. What greeted her was chaos-wounded civilians, crying. Children, smoke curling from blown-out terminals. But there were fighters, too. Tired, hardened. Alive. Dr. Voss Talon met them at the hatch pale, grim, eyes like knives. You have the device? He asked. Reich handed him the case. Talon cracked the seal and stared in disbelief. This is not a weapon. It's a cure. Kara stiffened. What? He gestured them inside to a sterile chamber. This whatever. It was designed for. It contains dormant viral DNA, capable of interrupting the Kex organ hive-binding genome. You're looking at a biocode that can sever their shared consciousness. They'd lose coordination, become individuals. Vulnerable, Reich said. Killable, Kara added. Talon nodded. But I'll need time to replicate it. You've got 1 hour, Kara said. Alarms screamed through the station. Outside the viewport, space was crawling. A Kex organ fleet 20 ships, no warning. No threats, just movement and intent. Kara grabbed Reich's arm. Get the prototype into the main tower. Secure the scientists. I'll buy you time. I'm not letting you go out alone, he snapped. You have to. This baby can't lose. Both of us. His face twisted. Then don't you dare die. She kissed him fast and fierce. Same to you. Outside, the battlefield erupted. Kara was everywhere, blaster bolts slicing through corridors, shouts echoing through the halls. She fought like a storm, each movement a promise. She wasn't just a soldier anymore. She was a mother. She was the last light dot, and then came the silence. Not hers dot, theirs dot the Kex. Orgone stopped moving. All at once, mid-charge, mid-flight, mid-slaughter. And then they collapsed. Talon's voice rang over comms. It worked. The cure. Their hive minds broken. They're unraveling. Cheers erupted across the station. Rick found her moments later, collapsed against a bulkhead, smoke rising around her. Blood on her face, a broken rib. But alive. Kara, he breathed. Falling to his knees beside her, she opened her eyes. We did it. He gathered her into his arms, holding her as if the universe might try to steal her again. You came back to me. She smiled weakly. I never left. Later, as they floated in orbit, the Kexorgan fleet in ruins. The stars spread wide before them. Kara stood at the viewport, a hand on her growing stomach. They'll never erase us, she whispered. Not me. Not my child. Reich wrapped an arm around her. And if they try? He said. We'll burn every system they crawl into, she said. And behind them, resistance beacons lit up the void, because the war was far from over. But Kara Vex would never face it alone again. She was a mother now, a warrior, and the galaxy would remember her name. Asterisk.